Welcome to this week's SV Lynx video. This week we are planning on working at the lot because we have about 5 days of sunshine coming. Finally we are out of the rain. And so with that, at the lot we're going to be working on bulkheads 5 and 6.
Right. We're taking this break because it was that huge atmospheric river, and in just maybe 4 to 5 days from now there's going to be another atmospheric river. And so although it looks beautiful and you can see all the snow up on the mountains from the last one, it is going to get rainy again. And in fact, this month is the rainiest month we're going to have all year. And so we expect that there's going to be on and off rain for the next 3 weeks. So we're going to sneak in a few times at the lot where we can work on stuff. And unfortunately, this particular window just wasn't quite long enough for us to do that copper coat on the other hull. And so we had to get bulkheads 5 and 6 prepped, because very soon, as soon as the weather is clear long enough, we'll put that copper coat on, flip those hulls over, and we're going to be putting those bulkheads in. So we had to get these things done. But once this week's over, we're going to be back to rain again, even though it looks beautiful right now. But for now, let's head over to the lot, and Brian and I are going to be working on the bulkheads. And as we mentioned in our previous video, Marianne's going to be heading off to work. Because she's got her part-time job she's going to go do for right now. So it's in the afternoon, so that's when she goes. And she's got another part-time job starting up soon, which she'll be doing some in the mornings as well. So she's hard at work making money for us, and Brian and I are going to be hard at work getting the boat built. So off to the lot we go.
Let's go.
For this week, we've got 5 days of beautiful sunshine. And that means we're going to work here at the lot. We've got 2 of the major bulkheads that we haven't quite finished, bulkhead number 5 and 6. And so we've got to get some rope on them and some lamination reinforcements done. So we're going to be doing that this week in preparation for flipping these hulls over eventually. But I wanted to mention something from our last week's video and kind of clear it up, because we've had a couple comments. And I think it's we weren't clear about what we were talking about when we mentioned atmospheric rivers. It may have come off like that we don't believe that that's a real thing. Of course, atmospheric rivers are a real thing. In fact, the one that just hit last week dropped a ton of rain, and of course you can see up in the mountains here, snow. And there was flooding, and I believe 15 people were killed. And so I don't want to make light of the fact that that's a serious weather condition. What we were trying to talk about in that was the fact that California has such good year-round weather that whenever the weatherman or weatherwoman gets a chance to talk about any kind of weather that isn't a typical California weather, they kind of oversell it often. And a good example of that was the previous atmospheric river that came through, and they talked about it was going to be how devastating it was going to be and horrible, and there's going to be cats and dogs, you know, all of that stuff. We didn't get any rain. And so they often over-sensationalize any kind of weather. Now, it just so happens that this particular atmospheric river was pretty serious, you know. It dropped 3 days of non-stop rain, and that was a lot of water, almost 7 inches in that amount of time. So again, don't want to make light of those weather conditions when we do get them, but our news agencies really do over-sensationalize news here. You know, weather 2024, the storms are coming, and they'll just go crazy about every little tiny thing. So anyway, we always take it with a grain of salt, because it's actually rare that we get extreme weather, and we did in this last rainstorm. But I said we're work 5 days here, and the reason for that is there is another atmospheric river coming starting next Saturday. And so we're going to stop working on the dagger boards while it's beautiful out, work on these bulkheads, and then when it starts raining again, we'll go back to my garage and pick up working on part 3 of the dagger boards. So that's what's up, and now Brian and I are going to go ahead and get to work on these bulkheads. We've got 1/2 of bulkhead number 5 out here, and we haven't finished the rope that goes inside or along the top edge or around the bottom. They're already routed out and all that good stuff, but we haven't put the rope in yet. So we're going to do that. So we've got our fiberglass, unidirectional fiberglass out to put in our ropes, and we're going to mix epoxy over here where Brian is. Hi, Brian. There you go. And roll this up and get it in here. And then there's also some reinforcements that we have to put in lamination, so we're going to also get that done. And then we have to do the other one side of this, and then we have to join them together. So that's sort of the goal of today, is at least get the rope in here and try to join them together so that they can set up over tomorrow. And then we're going to get to Big Bertha, the biggest bulkhead and the final bulkhead that we have to prep for when we flip the hulls over and start putting them in. To start with, we're working on the 6mm roll of epoxy and fiberglass rope that we're going to put around the inside of the cabin bed openings. And those are much thinner, which is why you see us using this thin piece. And of course, the tapered ends on there are because we have to overlap these as they go around, and we want about a 1 foot overlap on each of the 3 segments that go around this opening into the bed. Now, when we get to doing the other ropes that aren't just the opening into the bed, the ones that go across the top or the bottom of the bulkhead, and those are trying to add structural strength to the flex of the entire cabin as it's suspended over the bridge deck. And for those, we use a much thicker rope, as you'll see later on, which is about 20mm thick. So it's more than twice as wide as this thin strip is for just those openings into the bed, or the openings into the drawers underneath the bed. And so here we're just rolling out enough epoxy on here to get it fully wetted out. And then we were using power rollers, one on each side, but we found on these rolls that are 6 or 7 feet long, like this one's about 6 feet, that it doesn't roll the center of it quite tight enough for us. And so we found that just hand rolling it actually does us a better, tighter job. And it really doesn't take all that long to do it. When you start rolling it at the beginning here, it's the hardest to get it started. But once you get a couple rolls onto it, then the whole thing kind of just rolls pretty easily along. And so it's not really that difficult to hand roll these. So on some shorter sheets, we might still use those power rollers, but for these longer ropes that we're doing is 6 or 7 feet, which is this in meters. It's just easier to roll it like this, and doesn't take us a terribly long time. Now once it's rolled out, we just pick it up and go over and stuff it in. And once we get all 3 around the opening on the around the bed, then we'll get some thickened epoxy out and fill the last 5mm of depth so that it can be sanded easily. And if we need to put a little bevel on it, that can be done as well. So here it is, and off we go. We just finished inserting the 3rd section of rope around this bed opening, so I'm just pushing it into the slot all the way so that there's that additional 5mm of gap at the top. So while I'm doing this, Brian's mixing up our thickened epoxy over there, and once we have it mixed, we will just spoon it on, basically, with a stick, and then kind of leave a little raised area so that if the epoxy shrinks a little bit, it doesn't pull back into the slot where the rope is inside. The reason for this thickened epoxy is really, again, for sanding. And if we want to put a little beveled edge on it, there's something to bevel. Where if we had the rope coming out, that stuff is hard as a rebar once that stuff sets up, and it would be difficult to shape and sand. But having that layer on top of the thickened epoxy allows us to sanding and shaping, so that works out well. Well, Brian's got the epoxy ready, so we'll stick it on here and smear it around. This takes a while, so I've sped this up so that you don't have to watch us take the long time it takes to smear all of this thickened epoxy in. And while I'm putting in the first batch, Brian's already mixing up the next. and then he can help me here finish it up. There we go, all done. While Brian's over there mixing up our batch of epoxy right now, I'm getting this ready over here so that we can put rope into this trough that we'd cut earlier. And if you recall, the reason we cut this trough is that we can't have it go around this sharp bend right here. So having it come over here gives us a more gentle curve, and then it continues on in the trough along here. But these two panels, the one that's over here and this one, are about to be joined together in a moment. So we're going to put this first piece of rope in, and it's going to end about here. Then we're going to join the two panels with that biscuit right there, and then we're going to finish the rope, which then goes across here onto that panel over and across and through its trough. So a lot to get done in a short period, but we have everything cut over where Brian is over there, and all the pieces to do this are cut. And we're using Cyclamen, which gives us a little bit more time to set up. And of course, we have things that are being glued in the shade so that they don't set up too quickly, including even where we're wetting it out over here. So this first piece that goes into that trough I just showed you is a thinner piece than goes into the main structural portion that goes between the two panels, which is a full 20 millimeters thick there. This one's a little thinner as it goes through the trough because the board isn't thick enough to put the 20 millimeter in there. So put yours in and then butt it right into that end. And this looks like the right thickness. Leaves that 5 millimeter gap. So now Brian's going to mix up a little bit of thickened epoxy just to put on top of here. And then we're going to clamp this board onto here just to hold it in place while we're manipulating things around. Almost there. So we've just got to put the 5 mil thickened epoxy along this whole piece here. And we use this hard straight edge here to clamp this to make sure that this board is not bent as it goes across here. And the seam through here is perfect, so that's all good. It's also very straight across both sides, so it's all good. Bulkhead number 5 is getting there. This is one of the two most important bulkheads for strength across the boat. And so it's important that this one be good. Important they're all good, but particularly important that 5 and 6 are very strong. So they have a lot of reinforcements in them to get this super strong. Remember that it already has fiberglass on both sides. We're just adding more. And then after tomorrow, once we get that done, we'll let it set up. And the following work day, we'll start sanding this whole thing. And that'll complete bulkhead number 5. But we still got bulkhead number 6 to go. And we've got to do everything we've done on this one, plus a little bit more. Because bulkhead number 6 is this size, but even taller since it's the full height of the salon and cockpit to the roof. So it's even bigger, but it's not that much more work. The biggest difference is there's a door opening right in the middle, and we have to put a little bridge at the top of the door across the two panels, and that means that there's nothing to support the bottom. So what we're going to do is screw on a couple of 2x4s, one on each side of across this doorway opening, so that it just has some strength down there while we're lifting it and putting it into the boat and stuff. Once it's in the boat, we'll unscrew those 2x4s and fill the holes, and it'll be fine. But to get it in there, we really need to strengthen up that doorway into a rectangle. Otherwise, when we pick it up, it's likely to break the top up there. Well, it probably wouldn't, but we put that fiberglass rope in and all that reinforcements. But I'd rather be safe than sorry, so we'll put the 2x4s across the bottom of the door.
That's not called for in the plan, by the way, but like I said, better safe than sorry, because we're going to be picking these bulkheads up with the forklift and driving them down the center of the boat and setting them into 2 hulls soon. And that's coming pretty soon. Now, how soon? We're having a problem with weather again. Remember that 4 days or 3 days from now, around there, we're going to have another atmospheric river coming through, dropping rain for another 5 days of rain. And so that's why you don't see us putting the copper coat on that hull over there when we've done it on this one already. That's because we need enough sunny days to do that job, and we just don't have enough this week. We had to get these bulkheads done anyway, so this made more sense to use these sunny days to get these done. Then it'll rain, and then after the rain's over, if hopefully we'll get at least 7 days of sunshine, and we'll go ahead and put the copper coat on that hull. And as soon as that's done, we're ready to flip those over. So it's all about the weather right now, as soon as how soon we flip this hulls over, because it's only 1 day to paint that copper coat. It's just we need 3 or 4 days after that to let it cure to the point where it's not water soluble, and we need 48 hours for that. But we really want more than that, because epoxy doesn't get fully hard for many days, and we want that epoxy on the hull, the copper coat epoxy, to get really hard, because we have to lay these hulls on the ground and roll them to get them turned over, and we don't want to screw up the copper coat by having it be a little soft and the ground making problems. So the other thing we'll do to make that work without damaging them is we're going to take the time to rake out all of the gravel between the 2 hulls so that it's just dirt, and then we're going to put down tarps on top of the dirt so that the hull's rolling on the tarps, not on the dirt, and no gravel. So that should make it fine to roll them over, but we definitely want to make sure that copper coat is super hard. So that's why we have to wait until we have a good long weather window of at least 7 days so that we can get that copper coat done. But once the copper coat's on, then we have a little work to do on the inside of the hulls, which is maybe, I don't know, a week, let's call it. And we're ready to put these bulkheads in. So these bulkheads have to be ready to go in. So that's why getting them done now was smart. So we're going to wet out the final piece for bulkhead number 5. And we checked the plans, and bulkhead number 5 doesn't require any additional laminate. So this is the last work that we have to do on adding any kind of rope to it. The only thing left to do on that one will be to grind off the excess of the thickened epoxy that we put on the outside of the rope. But that means that we can now get on to bulkhead number 6, which is the final and largest of all the bulkheads. So, but at least we're going to be done with them when we get Big Bertha finished. And we can get to that really important milestone, which is flipping these dang hulls over. We just need that copper coat week of fair weather, and we'll be able to get these hulls flipped and really get to the work of starting to assemble the boat into the shape of a catamaran, finally. Go ahead. And looking forward to that. All of this individual prep work. And those dagger boards that we've been working on are sort of part of that. They're separate pieces than the main part of the boat. But it's all got to get done. It's just that we've done so much of the separate pieces that it's going to be nice to start assembling our Solitaire 1520 into the shape of a Solitaire 1520. Looking forward to seeing it look like a boat. Off we go, last piece. this last piece, we made it sure that it was centered on the biscuit divide right here between the two panels to make sure that that added extra strength where this joint is right here, rather than have two of these ropes meet here as well. So just a added bit of insurance on strength there. So this piece is so long. It's 25 feet 8 inches, this in centimeters, from one side of the boat to the other here. So we can't even mix up enough thickened epoxy in one batch. It won't fit in our container. So we'll mix up one and apply it. We'll get about halfway approximately, and then we'll mix up another batch and do the other half. But what we found is this Cyclamen epoxy sets up incredibly slowly. We've been working with West System and Cyclamen on various parts of this, and using the slow hardener on the West System stuff, like in here, in the sun it was starting to get hot from the thermal reaction there after about, say 30 minutes after we applied it. And we had to keep it in shade, otherwise it would really get too hot too fast. This stuff, it could be 2-3 hours and it still won't be smoking hot at all. It'll still be fairly cool to the touch. And so it just gives you, on the Cyclamen, a way longer time to work a large section. And that's good for doing massive laminations, which we have to do at parts of this boat. But on the other hand, when you're doing some small areas, it would be really annoying to have to wait 3 days for this stuff to set up enough to work on the next part. And so there are times when you want the epoxy to set up fairly rapidly because you're just gluing on a small shelf or something, and you want that to set up fairly good so you can work on the next part. And the Cyclamen would be too slow to work with in those kinds of cases. But on this other hand, when we're working with this 26-foot long piece of rope and we got to get the thickened epoxy for all of it and put on here while it's still not hard, it's nice having the super slow Cyclamen for that. So they both have their uses in that sense, but it's just incredible how much different they are. And it's not even a little, just hours difference in how fast they set up it to anything solid. But this, for example, it'll be 2 days from now before this rope has really gotten to any kind of really hard at all. And of course, much longer than that for it's truly completely cured. That's the way it is. So we've put it out onto these 2x4 cubes here so that it can just sit here and not be in our way while we work on Big Bertha over on the other tables that we have set up over there where we were just wetting this one out. And so this can just sit here for 3 days while it's getting hard enough. And we've leveled it all so that every surface of this is completely level. And so it'll be nice and straight when it's finished. But we didn't want to be held up, so we kept that table clear so we can start bringing out the 3 sections of Big Bertha, and we have to start routing out all of the openings for the slider door. So we'll be working on that next. And that panel is also going to get a whole bunch of strengthening laminations put onto it. So it's quite a bit more work than bulkhead number 5 here is. So, but it's the last one, so good to go. Good news, remember we did all of that work some time ago on the bulkheads? I forgot, but we already did all of the openings, all the rope and stuff around here, all the sanding, all the carving into the troughs, all of the filling of that, all done on both pieces of Big Bertha. So we're way ahead from where we thought we were on this one. All we have to do to finish her is put in the doorway and finish this one little trough that goes across the doorway up here. That's it. So this one is 90% done, and that's both pieces of this at this stage. So we're really far along on this one. However, now we have a different problem. We have to figure out how to, with bulkhead number 5 over there taking up 3 of our tables, and Bertha here being just as wide, 26 feet approximately wide. It won't fit on these 2 tables. These are 18 feet and these are 26. So what I think we're going to have to do is try to slide these tables down and take and put our 3rd table out that direction so that we have enough space to get these 2 across. So that's our next challenge, if you will. So we're going to do that right now. Well, it's time to get back into bunny suit, and I have to sand all of the edges over here because we put excess along here because we want to be able to sand it flush. So I've got to go around this entire bulkhead here and fix all of the epoxy, hardened epoxy there. So into the bunny suit and on with the mask because it's time for some nasty sanding. Excuse the noise, there's people pouring a foundation in the lot next to us right now for a add-on to the house. But as you can see, we have Big Bertha here laid out. And what we're doing right now is we're going to put the arch across the top of the doorway. So that's this piece right here. And so we've got a couple biscuits here that we're going to put in on each side. And we'll glue this in. Then we'll put a piece of rope. Here's my camera work. We'll put a piece of rope in here, which will go all the way across up to here. And then once that's all set and clamped and such, at that point, we're going to work on the arch and put rope all the way around. But before we do that, we'll level this whole bulkhead, make sure everything's nice and flat. And since we're using Cyclamen, this isn't going to set up so fast that we don't have time to get it all leveled before we put that piece of rope in all the way around. Now, we've already cut all of this over here, and so it's all the pieces are ready to go. So now it's just a matter of getting the epoxy mixed up, putting the biscuits in, putting the rope across the top, level it, putting the rope around there, and Bertha's ready to be put to bed. The only thing we'll have to do later is after it sets up, we'll have to sand that rope a little bit, but we should be able to get all that done today. And we'll see if we get to any of the reinforcements, which are also go on the either side of this. So we've got to start by getting one side of the reinforcements done. So I'll talk about that if we get to it, or another day.
we got the rope in all the way around and across here, and the biscuits in. So now we just need to keep this thing level while it sets up. So we're going to attach a straight edge along here. Help keep that straight while it's setting up. Now what Brian's doing over there is he's going to strap two 2x4s, one to either side so of that door opening, because that's such a weak spot that when we go to move this around, we don't want all the stress on just this little bridge across the top of the door there that we just put in. Although it will be very strong with all the rope we put in. Is Brian paddling upriver here? We're not paddling the boat yet. Anyway, it'll be very strong with the rope on both sides, but on the other hand, that's just still too much of a weak spot. So if we put a couple of 2x4s across that opening and screw them in together, we can keep this from flexing in some way. Yep. All right, that isn't going anywhere. And these are going to be staying here for a long time because we have to lift this whole thing with the bobcat and forklift and drive them down the center and set them into the holes. And then they're going to be suspended up there with no floor. The bridge deck won't be there yet. And so this will stay in, and then we'll build a bridge deck and raise the bridge deck up. And once the bridge deck's up and get bonded to this, then we'll finally remove these. So these are going to be here for quite some time to keep this thing in shape and don't put any stress on that arch that's up there. So there we have it. Well, that's a wrap for today. Now we just got to put everything away, but we leveled all this, particularly the part that's curing around the door. And so if that's all perfectly level, it'll set up nice and level. And tomorrow we'll be back to put this away in preparation for the rain, which starts the following day after tomorrow. And then the next day it hits seriously, so we'll have to get the whole lot prepared tomorrow for another atmospheric river. We love those atmospheric rivers.
Okay, so that was our week. We worked on Bulkhead 5, which was a lot of work. It took much more work. But when we looked at Bulkhead number 6, we had a happy discovery that part of it was already complete.
Yep, so we got all the rope work done and all the sanding on Bulkhead 5 done. We still got to sand the doorway in Bulkhead 6. And there's some laminate that we have to put on both sides of Bulkhead 6. But we're out of time. This is the last sunny day we're going to get. And so we're going to have to get back to the garage next week. And part 3 of our daggerboard work will continue. And it's good, though, that we're getting that done because those daggerboards turned out to be a lot more work than we anticipated. And it'll be behind us now. And so once we get to assembling the boat, we won't have to worry about building those separate dagger boards. So it'll be nice to get those done. We'll see how far we get in that part, but I have a feeling that we'll be getting a few sunny days after the rain, and we'll go back to the lot, and then there'll be another round, hopefully the final one, on those dagger boards. But next week, back to the garage. So we'll see you for that. But for this week, thank you all for watching. We hope you enjoyed the part at the lot, because we'll be in the rain again, like I said. So at least you got some sunny work that you saw us out doing for this week. And thanks to our patrons. We appreciate you guys donating to the building of SV Lynx. And it's really gotten critical to us to get money from anywhere, because we've got to make up a lot of those over budget problems that we're having. So we're working at it, she's working at it, and we will get this boat finished.
Yes. And don't forget to like and subscribe and click on the bell icon to be notified of that next video.
Yeah, so we'll see you next week in the garage.
Bye.
Bye.